Hi guys. So this is kind of a tough one to cover, but I'm going to do my best. So in this video, I'm going to talk about codependence, and I'm going to relate it a lot to my personal experience, but just sort of talk about like what it is, how it develops. So sort of a definition of codependence, it's not a perfect one, but you can kind of look at it like they lose themselves in relationships with others. And codependents tend to ignore their feelings, needs, and problems while obsessing over other people's problems, feelings, needs, and fixing others. They typically they possess a sort of exaggerated sense of responsibility for other people, and they often struggle with setting and maintaining healthy boundaries. Codependents often experience intimate relationships as places of fear and hurt, and they're very anxiety provoking. They often experience relationships, especially like the real intimate ones, as stressful, and they may suffer from anxiety, depression, guilt, and feelings of resentment. And they're coming from this place that they feel that their needs are never going to be met, and they typically have a hard time even voicing what their needs are. They are afraid that they are going to be ignored or just not be met. And sometimes codependents will actually manipulate to get their needs met. And they may manipulate by caretaking or fixing other people, or making, fixing their problems, or people pleasing and saying yes when they really mean no. So sometimes their type of manipulation, it's not necessarily like a really super conscious type of manipulation, but they're often being they're not saying their truth. They're not saying what their needs are. They're not expressing their needs because they often think, well, they're not going to be met anyway. No one's going to care enough about me to meet my needs. And so why even say what they are? They typically grew up in dysfunctional environments where their needs were either ignored or neglected. They often come from from homes that had addiction, mental illness, narcissism, poverty, overwhelming loss, abuse, sexual abuse, violence, or they might have come from sort of war-torn environments or sort of gang-related, communities where there's like a lot of that dysfunction on a community level. And they may have been, so their parents might have been sort of chronically overwhelmed, and the children might have developed codependency as a result of this chronic overwhelm. The parents were addicted or mentally ill, and there was so much chaos and trauma in the family system that the children may have had to abandon being children, and they may have taken on the role of caregiver, like a survival mode, where they grew up being very hyper vigilant, sort of compulsively scanning the environment for threats. These children learn to ignore their feelings and needs. They learn that they will be, or even in a more extreme fashion, that they may be punished for actually having needs. And in this case, introspection becomes a dangerous luxury that they just simply cannot afford. These children tend to learn to disconnect from their feelings and needs, and they develop sort of a defensive strategy of trying to control others in order to feel safe. They believe that they are responsible for other people's needs. And they may, as a result, they might end up developing sort of low self-esteem. They may think that they're undeserving of love because they feel like they're failures because they failed to fix their troubled parents or to fix the environment. They tend to be people that internalize their parents' problems as their own. And they often tend to develop unrealistic expectations about what is and isn't their responsibility in relationships and what they can and cannot control. So they often bring these distorted beliefs into adulthood. They feel this over responsibility for everyone around them, for their spouses, their children, their friends, their coworkers, their colleagues, their employees. And they tend to perceive other people's problems as their own, just as they did with their parents. They often, again, become riddled with anxiety, stress, and guilt in relationships, and they tend to ignore their own feelings, needs, and wants. They can often end up feeling like failures because, again, their goal of solving other people's problems is unobtainable. And this can actually become an addiction. The need to fix others, to solve other people's problems for them, is a way to avoid dealing with their own problems. For instance, when a codependent is compulsively trying to fix an addict or an alcoholic or a narcissist, they get to feel like the healthy person. So they're the ones that are constantly doing, all these basic care activities for grown adults that should be actually managing their own stuff. Like any addiction, codependence, it really stymies your healthy personal growth. And, if you're doing this as a codependent, you're using this fixing of other people's problems to avoid your own emotional pain. Very similar to an alcoholic who uses alcohol to avoid emotional pain, a sex addict who uses human bodies or pornography to avoid emotional pain, a narcissist who uses success and external validation to avoid dealing with emotional pain. Codependents tend to be very nice people. You'll see them as nice. They tend to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. They are often really have a hard time seeing other people as separate from them in a different way than narcissists do, but in this really weird way where other people's problems become their own. They internalize everyone else's problems. So they have a hard time seeing people as sort of sentient, separate human beings. And they think that it's their job to fix others and make everything better for others, rather than looking, honoring people and looking at them and being like, you know what, it's your, I bet you're going to come up with solutions to your problems. I have confidence that you'll be able to figure that out. And that's actually not my job. And most of the time with codependents, nobody asks them to come in and fix their problems. But even if they were asked, it's not their job. So in some strange way, it's like they're very toxic as well, in that they're not really seeing people for who they really are. They're seeing them as sort of projects that need to be fixed or that need to be, taken care of. So, some ways to really deal with this codependence, if this resonates with you, is there is a program for it. It's called Codependents Anonymous. I am absolutely not a cured codependent. I am absolutely working on it. It's been pointed out to me just from some internal journaling and some work I've been doing, how I have a very difficult time sort of seeing people as separate. I often impose my experience onto others, and I'm like, oh, well, if this worked for me, then this should work for you. Or if this is what I went through, then certainly you must be feeling similarly, right? And that's not actually fair, because everyone has their own experience walking through this world, right? And so we don't know what's best for others. I don't know what your solution is going to be. All I can do is try to share my experience, strength, and hope. And maybe some people it will touch them and others won't relate at all. And that's perfectly fine. But it's part of the work of learning how to heal your codependence is, learning how to keep the focus off of others and put it on yourself, and start learning how to do radical self-care. Start learning how to self-parent. Start learning how to, when your compulsion is to go in there and fix somebody else, take all that energy and put it back on yourself and figure out what it is in you that needs work, what it is in you that needs fixing, and try to, keep it on radical self-care, self-growth, introspection, self-reflection, and really try to come to a place where you're stopping your compulsion to fix or change other people, and you're instead turning it from a compulsion into healthy, loving self-attunement, self-care, self-reflection, and trying to figure out what it is that you need, what your needs are, what your wants are, and learning how to communicate those. And yeah, some people aren't going to meet your needs, and that's perfectly fine. Your job is to communicate them and give them the opportunity. And some people will be able to meet them and others won't, and that's fine too. The ones that aren't able to meet your needs, you'll know that that's where they're at, and stop asking them to change in order to meet your needs. You will find your people who are able to meet your needs if you're able to articulate and communicate them with integrity and honesty, and also recognize that they have needs and they have the full right to communicate to you what their needs are. And your job is to kind of listen and see if you can meet their needs. One of my mentors says you can ask for your needs to be met, and there's 3 possible answers. There's the yes, I can meet those needs, no, I can't meet those needs, or I don't know, but I'll try, or I don't know if I can meet them and I'm not really gonna try. So there's 3 possible answers, and if the answer is yes, great. If it's no, you have to figure out if that's a deal killer. If it's I don't know, maybe I'm working on it, then again, you have to figure out if that's a deal killer for you. So these are just some of the ways that you can start learning how to, properly communicate your needs and to stop with this incredible compulsion to fix other people and this external focus on other people's problems and how you can fix them and how you can make it better. And again, no shaming here. You learned this as a kid if you're a codependent because you came from some dysfunctional family environment where the problems were giant. The parents couldn't self-regulate. They couldn't fix their own needs. So the kid learned that they had to fix other people, or they had to try in order to feel any sort of semblance of control and power in their lives. So I hope this is helpful for you. I'm trying to do some deep dives into codependence and some healing remedies so that you can start learning a different way of operating in relationships. Thanks so much and have a good day. Bye.